Good morning and welcome to Moments with Melinda. I am absolutely delighted to have with me as my guest today Roger Allbee. And we're going to talk today about his new book, Turning the Soil. But before we get to that, hi, Roger, how are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. Thank you very much. And thank you for what you do.
Oh, you bet. And we are together on this sort of icy day in Vermont in the middle of January, snuggled in, right? Well,
Yep.
let me tell my viewers a little bit about you, Roger. So, Roger is an author, a cranberry exporter, agricultural banker, congressional staffer, and secretary of the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. He is the CEO of the Grace Cottage Family Healthcare Hospital in Townsend, and there are pages and pages on all the other things that Roger Allbee is and has done. But we're going to cover a lot of that today in our interview. So, Roger, thank you for being with me
Well, thank you. It's a delight.
and all my viewers. So let's start at the very beginning because you have an extraordinary beginning. You were born and raised in Vermont. Talk to us about your early life. You were raised on a farm that was in your family for hundreds of years. Talk to us about growing up in Vermont as a young boy.
As a young person, it was delightful. The hilltop farm I grew up on was like a family compound. Everyone in the community worked together. They helped each other. I went to a one-room school for 8 years, and then a local high school. Everyone was so connected, and it was just part of me, and continues to be part of me.
So you had an identical twin brother, Ron, who was
Yes.
also the Secretary of Agriculture. Now, this must be a first to have two twin brothers, and he's an identical twin brother.
He
And
is identical,
talk
and
to us a little bit about your brother, and
he
about, yeah.
well, it's interesting. Our paths crossed so many times professionally, in so many ways, and in what we do. Um, I after college, I did my military obligation, then in West Germany, and tactical nuclear weapons, uh, of all things. That was fortunate because I didn't go to Vietnam. That was fortunate. And he ended up in the Navy as an officer on an aircraft carrier, also classified in nuclear weapons. And then professionally, we both opted not to stay in the military for quite a few reasons. Our communities were very important to us, and where we came from was important to us. And professionally, our paths crossed. He was Madeline Cunan's Commissioner of Agriculture, and worked for Pat Leahy for a period of time as his ag advisor. And I worked for Jim Jeffords as his ag advisor, and worked with Pat Leahy when I worked on the House Ag Committee for Jim Jeffords, because we all worked together. It wasn't about politics back then. It wasn't about politics back then. It was about doing the right thing. So our paths crossed in so many ways.
And talk to us a little bit about your parents, because they were very
My, my,
instrumental in your life too.
my parents were very instrumental in what we did. My mother grew up in Brattleboro, Vermont. Her father died when she was 16 years old, and she didn't finish high school. Her mother sent her off to a nursing school in Boston by bus, and she got there and there wasn't any school, and she had to find her way to survive. She worked for a professor at Harvard as a nanny, and then my father's mother died in childbirth, well, giving birth to twins when he was 16. And so they were two people who didn't really have any family upbringing, but their family was the most important thing to them.
That's
Most
beautiful.
important thing to them.
It's beautiful, Roger. So talk to us about your wife, Anne, because she's been
Oh,
so instrumental in so
well,
much of your life. Talk to us a little bit about Anne and how you
we,
guys met.
Ian and I were college sweethearts at UVM. That's where we met. And we decided when I was in Germany, I came back, and we got married, and she went back and spent about a year and a half with me in Germany. And then we came back, and we moved around a lot. We moved to Washington, D.C. We moved to upstate New York when I worked for Cornell University. We came back to Vermont. We moved to Springfield, Mass when I worked for the Farm Credit Banks. and then came back to Vermont, which we always wanted to do.
At one point you were a stay-at-home dad while she was teaching.
That's
She's
right, very short period of time, and she would say to me when she'd come home, because it was a very short period of time. Um, she'd say, "What have you done today?" And I'd say, "Gee, I washed clothes. I made lunch for the kids. I did, did all this." And she said, "Now you know what it's like."
well, truly. I mean, a mother's job is never done, my friend. It's never
Never
done.
done.
Well, bless her
Never
heart.
done.
Do give her my best, will you?
Oh, she's
Um,
a wonderful lady.
so now, Roger, you're a humble man, and I know that you don't like to be, you know, uh, treated with accolades, and you're just a humble and gentle spirit. You have been described as having historical context and a keen sense of the political environment. You are considered a connector between people and have received tremendous accolades for who you are as a person. People have said you're kind, easy to work with, respectful, and you have been called from the nicest person on earth to being someone who understands Vermont in a way that others don't. Talk to us about this. And how did you generate this kind of love and feelings from people who you've worked with and lived around? Talk to us about that.
It was all due to my upbringing, really. Uh, all due to my parents, all due to what they taught me
Share with
about.
us about that.
Well, they taught us right from the beginning that you share with the community. You treat all people with respect. Um, and you don't look at people from any political perspective. You look at them as human beings. And the community was like that. We all worked together. And that was the essence of what I've always felt Vermont was all about.
That's so beautiful. So now you just recently did receive a couple years ago the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Vermont Council on Rural Development because you have dedicated your life to preserve the beauty and health of our beloved state. Talk to us a little bit about what this recognition meant to you and about the Vermont Council on Rural Development.
Well, it's a very important organization. Paul Costello, I think you know Paul,
Oh,
did tremendous work there, and many of us were involved. When you work together, it's no singular achievement; it's everyone working together. And with Paul's work and leadership, we developed the position of Ag Secretary, used to be Commissioner, because we thought it should be a cabinet level position. It's that important. We developed the working landscape funding with Paul's leadership because we felt that with all the changes taking place in agriculture, that there needs to be funding to help young people and those involved in agriculture and forestry to adapt to the changing economics going forward, and other things that Paul was leading us on. So it was Paul's great leadership that allowed all of us to work together, and it wasn't any singular effort by me. Please.
no, but you did get the Lifetime Achievement Award, and for that, I congratulate you. Well deserved.
Thank you.
And also for my viewers, I do want to be transparent that you and I both served on the Vermont Folklife Center
That's
together.
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
which was when I first met you. So now let's move on to your career in state government and talk about some of the administrations you have worked for, because you've worked for most of them. And
Yes.
I think it started out with Dick Snelling, right? Governor Snelling.
Well, yes, it's Dick Snelling when I was with Cornell University I was one of their first Sea Grant specialists. Sea Grant was an entity created to emulate what was done with the land grant system, bringing technology to the uh, people involved in ocean resources. And so my wife's father died unexpectedly, and we decided to come back to Vermont and be near uh, her mother. And when I did, there was just a short period of time that I washed clothes and made lunch for the kids. But then I was hired. The federal government had passed what they called the federal uh, federal law and that created the 208 program, when the river burned near the lake in New York and it caught on fire. So that's when the first federal action for non-point source pollution. And Snelling really headed that up with others, and they asked me to sort of head it up, which I did for a while, and then rightfully it was turned over to the Department of Environmental Conservation. And then I was the first consultant to the the state ag and forestry tax program to develop that for farmers in the state and forest owners. And then I went to Washington and worked for Jim Jeffords. So yeah.
Amazing career, amazing career. So now let's go back a little bit, 250 years, to your great grandfather, Jonathan Park. Talk to us a little bit about Mr. Park.
Well, in the spring, of 1766, my family's records show that my ancestor, Jonathan Park, set off north from Worcester County, Massachusetts, with tinderbox and kettle slung over his shoulder to seek his fortune in Hampshire grants. New Hampshire's then Governor Wentworth, eager to expand into territory west of the Connecticut River, was offering cheap land grants to all comers. Park, pursuing this opportunity, halted in the frontier town of Fane, now Newfane, Vermont, selecting lots on a hilltop in the center of the land. Park first cleared what is known as Old Newfane Hill Common, and then in the summer of 1768 began clearing at Fayetteville, now Newfane Village. He proceeded to build what would become the first frame house in town, covering the hand-hewn frame with hemlock bark. Park wasn't alone. After England won possession of Canada with the Treaty of Paris in 1763, settlers from southern New England began moving north in search of plentiful, fertile land, which was lacking in Massachusetts and Connecticut. Vermont's early settlers were hardy, accustomed from childhood to use of axes and guns. They were full of an ambitious purpose to found homes and communities of their own. Between 1780 and 1800, the settler population of Vermont grew from 30,000 to 150,000. The vast majority were of British origin. Of roughly 85,000 Vermonters reported in the 1790 census, some 81,000 of them were English, and another 2,600 were reported to be Scots. For thousands of years before European settlement, Abenaki people had lived on the land and waters. They grew crops in association with settled villages on the Missisquoi, Winooski, and Connecticut rivers. These earliest inhabitants of the land practiced an itinerant form of agriculture, seasonally rotating among various agriculture clearings. For example, below the soil of the Intervale in Burlington, where the Winooski River becomes a delta, is a 5,000-year record of Abenaki history. It shows that the land was used seasonally for hunting, fishing, gathering, and growing food. It is likely the Abenaki grew three sisters, corn, beans, and squash, as well as tobacco and sweetgrass, their sacred crops. From the perspective of European settlers, the northern New England forests were empty and ripe for taking. After clearing the land, the settlers grew a variety of crops between the stumps. Corn, a staple crop, along with beans, pumpkins, turnips, and parsnips, a few kinds of potatoes, and wheat, barley, and buckwheat. Often the farmstead would boast at least one cow and a pig too. Sheep were kept for wool, flax was raised and cultivated for its fiber and made into clothes. Ira Allen, one of the state's founders, hailed Vermont's lush land and resources in 1796. While in England, he wrote a letter to the Duke of Portland on that subject. The soil, with a little cultivation, supplies inhabitants with all the necessities of life in abundance, such as wheat, oats, rye, beans, barley. They have no necessity to introduce foreign grasses, where every hill and valley affords an abundance of herbitage spontaneously, and every plain permitted to remain a few months untouched becomes a meadow. The woods also produce other fruits in plenty, some of which you must pamper in your own hothouses in England. Our climate is mild, our soil fertile, our inhabitants industrious, our provisions abundance and cheap, and we are determined to avail ourselves of these blessings and to hand them down, at least unimpaired, to our children.
Wow. Now that is from your book, Turning the Soil, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But thank you, Roger. Thank you so much for reading that. That is chapter 1 from Roger's book, Turning the Soil. So, I want to talk to you for a second about your work that included dealing with Vermont's water sources, which were so polluted back in the early 1970s that they were once called the most beautifully landscaped sewer in America. What role did you play to clean up Vermont's waterways and in creating Vermont's current use program, Roger?
Well, it's kind of interesting when you go through the history of Vermont after the flood of 1927 that destroyed almost everything in Vermont. Um, the Country Commission on the Future of Vermont was organized, and in 1932 they released a very voluminous report that really set the stage for the future of Vermont in many aspects. And one of the things they identified, even then, was Vermont had wonderful water, clean water, and that should be its priority in the future to keep it clean. Well, that didn't necessarily happen, as we all know. And so the Clean Water Act of 1972, when that river burned in Western New York, is when Congress finally created the Clean Water Act to focus on non-point source pollution. And that's when all the attention came to helping farmers, because before the Clean Water Act and the Soil Conservation Service, which is now NRCS, and the Soil and Water Conservation Districts, which were created in 1932, all after the Dust Bowl were created, most of the emphasis was on soil health. It wasn't really looking at what happens when the soil goes into the water. And that didn't happen until 1972. And so the whole effort after that was to focus on how can we help stop pollution from taking place.
Amazing. So the current use program, talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, that the issue with the current use was the fact that when that was created under Governor Snelling and the legislature, a lot of the tax was going on farm property. Um, and it was based not on what the land was being used on, but basically they were being taxed on its development potential. So the current use program was to come in both for farms and forestry and to reverse that and say, basically, if the land is kept in agriculture and you have a 10-year contract, that you will be taxed less on that and won't be taxed on its development program
That's
potential.
right. And if you have more than 30 acres, I
That's
believe.
right. That's right.
So now let's move on to Jim Jeffords, who, as
Yeah.
we all know in Vermont, was just such a hero in
Oh,
Washington.
totally.
Oh, but you worked
Totally.
for Jim Jeffords in
Yes.
Washington as a professional staff on the House Committee on Agriculture.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this time in your life and working for Jim.
It was a wonderful time of my life. It was one of the most enjoyable times in my life. He was one of the brightest people I've ever worked for, bar none. I shouldn't say that, should I?
No,
But
you absolutely can say that.
he was very intelligent. And I'll tell you a story. My first day going down there, here I am, a country boy. Well, I've done some things since then, but I was a country boy, and I walk into his office. Ann wasn't down with me yet. We hadn't settled the family, and Jim says, "Roger, we're going to have breakfast in the Capitol this morning." And I'm saying, well, this is pretty heady stuff. A country boy coming to Washington. And I said, gee, Congressman, who are we having breakfast with? And he says, Tom Foley. Tom Foley was the chair of the House Ag Committee. He was a congressman from Washington State, a wonderful gentleman, a Democrat, but we all worked together. And he said, yes, we're having breakfast with Tom Foley this morning. He's offered to help us get the first National Ag Land Protection Bill through Congress. And by the way, that's going to be your job. And we did.
And look
Uh,
at you. And you did.
uh,
Thank you. Bravo.
but
Now,
Jim never looked at issues from a Democrat or Republican point of view.
Well, no, of course
That's
not.
just
I mean, those were different days. We're going to talk about that at the end of our interview. So you were devastated when Reagan pushed for the 1982 Farm Bill. And at
yes.
this point, you made a commitment to rethink the dairy industry. Talk to us about that time for you.
Oh, it was a very trying time because what happened was that the National Milk Producers Federation, which is the organization that heads up the dairy cooperatives in this country, when Jimmy Carter was running for president, um, he was running out in Wisconsin and that area, and a farmer in the audience said to Carter, Governor Carter, if you're elected, will you support 85% of parity? Parity was a concept that was put in for the dairy industry in the, well, about what periods? Early or late 1700s. And it was to give dairy industry parity to what the price was during the highest pricing period in the dairy industry. And Carter um, asked one of his aides, a friend of mine actually, Cliff Osey, he said, "What should I do?" And Osey said, "Say you support it." And so when he when he was elected president, Carter stuck to what he promised, and 85% of parity was put in. And all of a sudden, there was too high a price for the dairy industry. People were producing milk. They were storing butter, cheese, and powder in battleships in New York Harbor and Dave's in Missouri. And we had hearings to determine what could be best be done. Um, Tom Harkins was chair of the dairy subcommittee, and Jim was the ranking member, but we all worked together. It wasn't any one versus the other. We worked closely together
That's beautiful.
and worked very closely together. And so the USDA just wanted to cut the price to market clearing level, which would have wiped out the dairy industry in the Northeast and other parts of the country. And we couldn't let that happen, obviously. And so we got together. And Jim and Tom came back um, from vacation, and we got together with them. We said, you know, the only option is a supply management program, which had been proposed early in the 1900s in Vermont and has been proposed continuously in Vermont. Um, and so we said we'll put that forward, and they both agreed with that. And Jim and Tom said, well, we should get the subcommittee together to agree on that. And they got the subcommittee together, and the subcommittee agreed to it. And then a couple of them said we should ask the leader of National Milk to come in and tell him what we're going to do. They asked him to come in, and he just blasted them totally. He just blasted them. Said none of them would ever get any support. And Jim and Tom held firm, but the others didn't. And so we were faced with the issue of what to do. And in the 1982 Farm Bill, Jim was considered the leader of the dairy industry policy, both on the House and Senate side. He was that well respected, that well respected.
Mm.
And we determined, well, what could we do? And so when the conference committee of the House and Senate got together, at that time it was chaired by Jesse Helms of North Carolina. They decided that Senator Stoll and Jim Jeffords would be the people to work out the dairy pricing system.
Great.
And come after. Well,
So, share it with, let's move on to your work as the CEO of Grace Cottage
yes,
and your career move into healthcare. Let's talk a little bit about that, because that's kind of a break from what you normally are focused on or were focused on in your career.
yes.
Talk to us about what Grace Cottage is and
Well,
your work there.
it's a wonderful institution. And I had been on the board of Grace Cottage. The hospital was founded by the doctor that delivered my twin brother and myself. Um,
Oh,
and he was my doctor growing up, Dr. Otis. And when I moved back to Vermont, my mother, who was in her 80s, then said to some of us, "Why don't we have a assisted living facility in our area instead of having to go to Brattleboro?" And so a bunch of us created a citizens committee and we did interviews in the towns and we collected information and it came back that yes, there was support for creating a assisted living facility. And so I was put on the Grace Cottage board because of that work with others. And we were in the process of hiring a new CEO, and the person we were going to hire took another job, which obviously happens in life. And they said to me, "Gee, Roger, you're retired now. You have management experience. Can you take over for a short period of time?" Well, 4 years later, but I learned a lot. I
Well,
learned how primary care is so important. I learned that our whole healthcare financing system is backwards. um, that we need care for all
yes,
um,
absolutely.
in this country,
Bless your
but it's
heart.
probably not going to happen in my lifetime.
Oh, don't, yeah, I don't know.
I
You
hope
never
so.
know.
I hope so.
So thank you for your work at Grace Cottage. So now you ran for public office
I did.
and you lost twice. And I
Yes, and
think the reason you lost twice was
my wife
because,
said I should never have done it.
well, I think the experience was probably good, but you
Yeah.
ran once as a Republican and then you
Yes.
ran as a Democrat. And
I,
I think
I,
you lost because you had other things you needed to do.
well, I ran as a Aiken Jeffords Republican the first time. And the second time I saw what was happening to the Republican Party, that it wasn't the Republican Party anymore, was not the Republican Party anymore. And so I ran as a Democrat. So yeah, it was a great experience.
Well, good for you. Now listen, we're gonna talk now about this book that you just wrote, Turning the Soil. And thank you for sending me a copy and for signing it, Roger. And it was also published by the White River Press out
Yes,
of Amherst, Mass. And I'm this is a fascinating book and it's a beautiful the way you write the stories. It's your new book. It's a historical look at agriculture for the past 250 years, of which we're coming up to our country's anniversary, 250th year anniversary this July. It's a fascinating and beautifully written account that captures the imagination brightly and colorfully, tells compelling stories about the history of agriculture in Vermont. So, talk to us about Vermont's current agricultural industry and where you see the future of Vermont's agriculture in the next 20 years and how
well,
it is and will be
yeah,
affected by global warming.
yeah. And the last chapter is the Renaissance of the past, which
You
I have.
write that in your book.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that, Roger.
Basically, what I see is that we can never compete with the West on commodity basis, and never should. That was what we learned way long time ago, and that is
Can
what
you
got.
explain that again to me?
Well, take the dairy industry, which the commodity dairy pricing system was put in 1937, and it still exists today. And the reason we lose so many dairy farms, I think we're down to 426 in Vermont now. Uh, some are organic, but some are not organic. But it's because the pricing system does not benefit our farmers in Vermont. Hasn't for a long time.
So, Roger, why did you write this book? Because I'd like to know what was behind because it's almost like a memoir, actually. It's an autobiography. Talk to us. Why did you write this book?
Well,
Turn-
I wrote it because I had a passion for Vermont, and I had a passion for its history, and I had a passion for trying to make people understand why the changes took place, why they continue, and what are the things that can be done to help our landscape and our farmers continue farming.
And and so you explore the important moments in agricultural history, and you share the
Yes.
stories of farmers,
Yep.
ag leaders, and others who shape Vermont's farming culture.
Yep.
So, Roger, where do you see our agricultural industry now that we're
I,
down to only
I,
400
I
farms
yeah,
with global warming? Where do you see
yeah,
it?
we're known as a food state. We really have gained a reputation as a food state, a great
Really?
reputation. We have artisanal cheeses that win worldwide awards. Worldwide, we have beer and wine and spirits that win awards as well. We have wonderful farmers markets. We have wonderful CSAs. We have all those things, and that's our future, doing those things, small scale, not being huge operations.
So were you involved at all in the Intervale Center? I mean, we just lost Will Rapp a few years ago.
He and he was a supporter of the book, by the
Oh,
way.
was he a
Uh,
supporter of the book?
yeah,
Bless his heart.
he
Well, I
supported
served on that board as well and was the chair for
a
a while.
wonderful guy. I
Oh,
miss him terribly.
one of the most brilliant. You want to talk about brilliant
Absolutely.
people.
Yeah.
So what about the future of our food economy in Vermont with global warming? What are you seeing
Well,
changes?
I think there's going to be change. I've talked to people in extension and others. There's going to be changes on the type of food that is grown in certain areas because of climate change, and hopefully extension and UVM are working on what kind of crops are resilient to drought and to climate change.
Mhm.
There's going to be changes in the I grew up in the maple industry. Our family had over 2,000 taps back when I was a kid. I gathered sap. There's going to be changes in the maple industry as well because of climate change. We're already seeing changes in the skiing industry
Oh yeah.
and making so climate change is with us, and adaptability is going to be very important. It's going to require funding from the state and localities and farmers working together. We have funny, wonderful mottos out there. We have the Intervale and food hubs and other things being done up in Hardwick and other parts of the state. These are going to be very essential going forward.
The Sustainable Jobs Fund,
Absolutely,
Ellen Keller,
absolutely.
they're doing
All these
great
things.
work.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that because I know that people in Vermont are worried about that.
Yeah.
So so you are deeply ingrained, steeped, and passionate about Vermont. What inspires you and what keeps you up at night?
Oh, what keeps me up at night? Well, part of it is the whole healthcare system. A group of us for the past 4 years put together a Wyndham Aging Coalition to try to address what are the things that need to be done in the next few years around housing, access to healthcare, socialization, all those issues so key to the future of facilities for people as they age. The state's policy is that people should be aging in place. Well, that's not possible for a lot of people. So we're trying to work on that, as well as food accessibility, food accessibility, food accessibility. Those are the things.
And what does that mean to you, food accessibility?
Well, food accessibility is farmers markets, CSAs, local production, having it available where you can get it. I love going to farmers markets. I love going to farmers
Well, I'm sure
markets.
they love seeing you.
Well, when
I
I
mean, what
travel,
you show.
when I travel, I have a son in California and a daughter in Wisconsin. And the first thing I do is go to farmers markets. When I
Oh, well, bless your heart. So I'm going to move to current affairs.
yeah.
Where do you see our world and what wisdom
Oh,
can you give our people of what we are experiencing right now?
I'm distraught. Never in my lifetime did I ever expect to see something like this. When I worked down there and even before with Jeffords, I mean, that was the grand old party where everyone worked together. And when Nixon did what he did with Watergate, it was the Republican leaders went to the White House and told Nixon that he had to resign.
Mhm.
He had to resign. In this day and age, um, the Republican leaders in the House and Senate had basically turned over all their powers to this uh, wannabe king, wannabe king. The only thing I hope is that this midterm election coming up is going to have so many new voices in Congress and hopefully maybe in the Senate.
If
That
we're allowed to have elections, if he doesn't,
I know
I mean,
that
everybody
scares me.
keeps saying to me, well, there's not going to be a lot, but
No,
I
no,
have
that
that
scares
hope
me.
too.
It scares me because what I see is in happening in Minnesota with this Nazi type tactics going on, is that he's even saying this morning he's going to do the Insurrection Act, possibly. So I think he's trying to scare people away from going to elections.
Right.
Absolutely.
So what's your words of wisdom for I mean, because I'm only 6 years younger than you. What are
We
your
can't.
words of wisdom to your children, your grandchildren?
I tell them all, none of us can give up. We all have to be out there. We all have to be doing our best in some way to resist what's going on, whatever it is, whether it's protesting or writing letters or contacting people or supporting members of Congress, new members of Congress. We all have to do what we can in some way.
Thank you so much for that. So have you ever seen our film on George Aiken?
No, I'd love to see it.
All right, I'm going to send you the link to that. I also want to send you the link to the film that we did on Lowell Thomas and the rise of broadcast news
Oh,
and
oh,
the
one of the people I didn't mention, and you should know, Perry Merle.
yes.
Perry Merle. He really developed the Vermont ski industry.
Well, he's in our film Legends of American Skiing.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think what I'll do is I'll just send you the link to the website and you can click on the films and you can watch them, stream,
Oh,
write them on your computer, hook them up to your TV,
wonderful.
and I'll do that for you. So now I want to ask you what's next for you and Anne? Roger, what's next?
Well, we've been on a lot of boards and on a lot of different things. Anne's very involved in the Heritage Festival down here. She makes 200 pies, apple pies,
God.
every year for the Heritage Festival. And we're going to continue doing that kind of work. And then I'm still writing articles for the local paper on key events and key issues. I wrote one on the when Judge Kavanaugh came out with his position that people, uh, because of the color, could be picked up. I went back and did a little history and wrote an article for a local paper saying this reminds me of World War II. I had a board member on the Farm Credit Board who was a wonderful guy, Tak Mariucci. He was Japanese American. And I said to him, "Tak," and he, at that time, he was a big fruit grower in New Jersey. And I said, "Tak, tell me about your family's history." And he said, Roger, he said, "they took everything from me in World War II, everything from my family, everything. They put us in this camp." He said, "I'm as much of an American as you are, but they took everything from me." And I said, "That's what's happening today."
Well, thank you, Roger Allbee, for all you have done to serve our beautiful state of Vermont. You are a man of deep compassion, brilliance, and purpose, and all of us in this Green Mountain State are deeply grateful
Um,
for your
I,
contributions to making
I,
Vermont a cleaner, more beautiful, economically strong, sustainable, healthy place to live. And to my viewers, so where can they find your book? Local
um,
bookstores?
Local bookstores, some of
Yep.
them have it. Barnes and Noble sometimes has it.
Yep.
Those places.
So to my
Yeah.
viewers, pick up Turning the Soil by Roger Allbee. It is a beautiful, beautiful historic accounting of more than just the earth, the soil, but really of the life of Vermont for the last 250 years. So I encourage you all to pick it up. And Roger, thank you so much for being on my show. You're a delight. Give my love to Anne.
Oh, likewise, and to your husband too. And can I get a copy of this piece here that you're doing?
Oh, you're
Or do
definitely
I?
going to get a copy. It's going to get published by Channel 17. And
Okay,
then I get a link to it. And then
okay.
it goes syndicated across the state to local channels.
Yep.
It gets shown like a dozen times at Channel 17. It goes up on there into their archives, and I put it up on all my social media. So it
Okay.
gets out to 4,000 people. And
Yeah.
then I'll send you the link and you can use it. And it also goes on YouTube as well.
Okay.
So it will be spread around all over the place. And that's it. Although you don't need any notoriety because I think most
You know
people,
what? You know what I really enjoy? I went down to Guilford a couple of months, well, 3 months ago, and did a session at the Guilford Grange and Community Center. They call it a community center now, and there were a lot of local farmers I knew there, and that's when it's an interesting discussion because they can
oh,
go back into their history, and it's
absolutely.
yeah.
Have you now is the Vermont Historical Society carrying your book? I just went on their board.
They did have it on their.
Okay, so they've got it. And I would love it if one of our board meetings you would come and speak.
I'd love to. The other thing the Historical Society is doing, they I got a call from Amanda, and she said that they were doing a whole book for the 250th anniversary of the country, and they're going to do it on different industries in Vermont. And so she wanted me to do one on the dairy industry, the history of it from the beginning to today in 1,600 words. So
Wow.
I'm trying to do that.
Well, I'm sure you can do that. I'm sure you can do that. Well, I serve on that board now, so I'd love to
It's a
have you
wonderful
speak to
board.
the board. Oh, it's an
It's a
incredible
wonderful
organization.
board.
To my
Yeah.
viewers, Roger Allbee, you're a beautiful human being, and I honor you, my friend. Thank you for
And,
all you've done, and thank you for
best
being on my show.
best for your husband too. But
Thank you, sir. All right, and to my viewers, I will see you soon. Have a beautiful day.